My name is Keon, and I'm a father first, everything else second. That's why when my phone rang at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday and I heard my 7-year-old daughter Sophie sobbing, my world stopped. "Daddy, please come get me," she cried. "I'm at the hospital." "What? Sophie, what happened? Where's your mother?" "Grandpa Frank pushed me down the stairs," she whispered. "It hurts so bad." I grabbed my keys and ran. My hands shook as I drove to County General, my mind racing through every worst-case scenario. Sophie had been spending the afternoon at my in-laws' house, while my wife Rachel worked from their place. I burst through the emergency room doors. "I'm looking for Sophie Chen." I stopped myself. "Sophie Taylor, my daughter." The nurse pointed me to room 7. I found Sophie in a hospital bed, her arm in a temporary splint, a bruise blooming across her cheek. "Baby girl, what happened?" She started crying again. "Grandpa got mad because I spilled juice on his carpet. He grabbed my arm really hard and pushed me. I fell down the stairs." A doctor entered, a woman with kind eyes named Dr. Anderson. "Mr. Taylor, I'm glad you're here. Sophie has a fractured wrist and some bruising. We need to ask you some questions." "Of course, anything." "Has Sophie ever shown signs of injury like this before?" I shook my head. "Never. She's clumsy sometimes, but nothing like this." "The injury pattern is concerning," Dr. Anderson said quietly. "The bruising on her arm shows finger marks, consistent with someone grabbing her forcefully." My blood ran cold. "You're saying someone did this on purpose?" "I'm saying we're required to document everything and report our concerns." That's when my wife Rachel walked in, with her father Frank right behind her. "Keon, thank God," Rachel said. "It was such a scary accident." "Accident?" I stared at her. "Sophie said he pushed her." Frank, a tall man with gray hair and an attitude that demanded respect, crossed his arms. "The girl is being dramatic. She tripped." "You grabbed her arm," I said, my voice rising. "Look at the bruises." "I was trying to steady her," Frank said dismissively. "She's making it worse than it was." Rachel put her hand on my shoulder. "Dad feels terrible. Sophie just slipped. You know how she exaggerates." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Our daughter is in a hospital bed with a broken wrist, and you're defending him?" "I'm saying it was an accident," Rachel insisted. "Dad would never hurt Sophie on purpose." I looked at Sophie, saw the fear in her eyes as she looked at her grandfather. "Sophie, tell Mommy what happened." "He pushed me, Mommy," Sophie said softly, "after he grabbed my arm really tight." Rachel's face hardened. "Sophie, that's enough. Grandpa already explained it was an accident. Stop making him feel bad." "She's 7 years old and she's in a hospital," I said through gritted teeth. "And you're worried about his feelings?" Frank stepped forward. "Watch your tone, boy. This is between family." "You hurt my daughter. You're not family anymore." Rachel grabbed my arm. "Keon, please. Let's just take Sophie home and forget this happened." "Forget it happened?" I pulled away from her. "No, we're not forgetting anything." Dr. Anderson cleared her throat. "I need to finish my examination. Perhaps the adults should step outside." I kissed Sophie's forehead. "I'll be right outside, baby. You're safe now." In the hallway, Rachel turned on me. "You're embarrassing us in front of the hospital staff." "I don't care about being embarrassed. I care about our daughter telling us her grandfather assaulted her, and you calling her a liar." "I'm not calling her a liar. I'm saying she misunderstood what happened." Frank lit a cigarette right there in the hallway. "The girl needs to learn respect. That's the problem with kids today." A nurse approached. "Sir, no smoking in the hospital." He ignored her completely. That's when I knew. This wasn't the first time Frank had shown he didn't follow rules, and my wife had been covering for him for years. "I'm taking Sophie home with me," I said, "without either of you." "She's my daughter too," Rachel protested. "Then act like it," I shot back. Choose her over him for once. Rachel's silence told me everything I needed to know. The next morning, I called in sick to work and took Sophie to our pediatrician, Dr. Patel. "Mr. Taylor, I'm glad you brought her in," Dr. Patel said after examining Sophie. "These injuries are consistent with physical abuse." "What do I do?" "Document everything. I'm required to report this to Child Protective Services." My stomach dropped. "CPS?" "It's for Sophie's protection," she assured me. "They'll investigate and make sure she's safe." I hired a lawyer that afternoon. Attorney Jessica Williams came highly recommended for family law cases. "Tell me everything," she said, pulling out a notepad. I explained the hospital visit, Rachel's reaction, Frank's history of being controlling and aggressive.
"Has Frank ever shown violent behavior before?" Jessica asked. "Rachel's mother left him 10 years ago. Rachel never talks about why, but I heard from her brother that Frank used to hit their mom." Jessica wrote quickly. "We need to establish a pattern. Anyone else witness Frank's behavior around Sophie?" I thought hard. Our neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, she mentioned seeing Frank yell at Sophie in the driveway a few months ago. And Sophie's babysitter, Amanda Garcia, said Frank made her uncomfortable when he visited. "Contact them today. I need statements." That evening, I sat down with Mrs. Peterson in her living room. "I'm so glad you're taking this seriously," she said. "That man scares me. Last summer, I saw him grab Sophie's arm when she dropped her ice cream cone. She was crying." "Did you hear what he said?" "He called her a stupid, clumsy brat. I almost said something, but Rachel was there and she just ushered Sophie inside." I felt sick. Rachel saw it? She told Sophie to apologize to Grandpa for making a mess. The next person I called was Amanda, the college student who babysat occasionally. "Mr. Taylor, I've been wanting to tell you something for months," Amanda said when she arrived. "Frank gives me really bad vibes. One time, he came over unannounced while I was watching Sophie. He started criticizing how I was doing everything." "What did he say?" "That I was too soft on Sophie, that kids need firm hands. He grabbed a wooden spoon from the kitchen and said, 'This is what my kids got when they misbehaved.'" Sophie looked terrified. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Mrs. Taylor said I was overreacting when I mentioned it to her. She said Frank was just old-fashioned." I called my sister Lauren, who was a social worker in another county. "Kian, you need to file for emergency custody immediately," she said. "If Rachel is defending the abuser over Sophie, she's enabling the abuse." "Rachel is her mother. I can't just—" "Yes, you can. Sophie told you what happened. The doctor confirmed it. Rachel sided with Frank. That's failure to protect." "What if I'm wrong?" "Look at the evidence. Trust your daughter. She needs you to believe her." I spent the next week gathering everything: medical records, witness statements, photos of Sophie's injuries, text messages where Rachel defended her father. CPS investigator Jason Mitchell came to interview Sophie. He was gentle and patient. "Sophie, can you tell me what happened at Grandpa's house?" he asked. "I spilled juice and he got really mad," she said quietly. "He said I was careless and grabbed my arm. It hurt. Then he pushed me and I fell down the stairs." "What did Mommy say when she got there?" "She told me to stop lying, but I wasn't lying." Jason turned to me after Sophie left the room. "Mr. Taylor, I'm recommending that Frank have no contact with Sophie and that your wife's visits be supervised until we complete our investigation." "What does that mean for us?" "It means you're doing the right thing. Keep documenting everything." That night, Rachel finally called me. "Kian, please come home. We can work this out." "Not until you admit what your father did." "He made a mistake. He feels terrible." "He doesn't feel terrible. He said Sophie was being dramatic." Rachel's voice hardened. "You're tearing our family apart over an accident." "No, Rachel. You chose your father over our daughter. That's what's tearing us apart." She hung up. 2 weeks later, I filed for divorce and full custody.
Rachel showed up at my apartment with Frank in tow.
"You're seriously doing this?" she demanded. "I'm protecting our daughter." Frank stepped forward. "You're brainwashing that girl against me." "Stay away from her," I warned. "You can't keep me from my granddaughter." "I have a restraining order that says I can. You'll be served tomorrow." Rachel's eyes widened. "A restraining order? Against my father?" "He's a danger to Sophie." "You're insane," Rachel spat. "No judge is going to keep me from my daughter." "Any judge who sees the evidence will," I said calmly. "Doctor's reports, witness statements, Sophie's own testimony. You chose an abuser over your child." "He's not an abuser!" I pulled out my phone and played a recording. It was from my doorbell camera the previous week, showing Frank ringing my bell repeatedly and shouting, "Tell that girl she better apologize!" Frank's voice boomed from the speaker. "She's a lying little brat. I'll teach her some respect." Rachel went pale. "That's who you're defending," I said. "That's who you think should be around our daughter." Frank lunged forward and I stepped back. "Get out of my house before I call the police." "This isn't over," Frank snarled. "Yes, it is." After they left, Jessica called me. "The custody hearing is scheduled for next month. How's Sophie doing?" "She's in therapy now. Dr. Sarah Bennett says she's showing signs of trauma, especially around male authority figures." "That's actually helpful for our case. The therapist can testify." "I hate that we have to use her pain as evidence." "I know, but it's how we protect her future." The night before the hearing, I sat with Sophie while she did homework. "Daddy, do I have to see Grandpa again?" "Not if you don't want to." "What about Mommy?" I chose my words carefully. "Mommy made some choices that weren't good for you. We're going to let a judge decide what's safest." "Will the judge believe me?" "Yes, baby, they'll believe you." She hugged me tight. "I'm glad you believed me, Daddy." "Always, Sophie. Always." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Judge Morrison, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, looked over the documents. "This is a petition for full custody and modification of parenting time. Mr. Taylor, you're representing that the mother has failed to protect the minor child?" "Yes, Your Honor," Jessica stood. "We have substantial evidence." "Mrs. Taylor, you're represented by Mr. Connor Reed?" Rachel's lawyer, a slick-looking guy in an expensive suit, nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. We believe Mr. Taylor is overreacting to an unfortunate accident." "Let's hear from Mr. Taylor first." I took the stand, my hands sweating. Jessica approached me. "Mr. Keon, can you describe what happened on October 15th? "My daughter called me from the hospital. She was crying, said her grandfather pushed her down the stairs. When I arrived, she had a fractured wrist and bruising." "What was your wife's reaction?" "She defended her father, called it an accident, told Sophie to stop exaggerating." "Did anyone else witness concerning behavior from Frank Morrison?" "Yes. Our neighbor Mrs. Peterson saw him grab Sophie aggressively months earlier. Our babysitter heard him talk about hitting children." Rachel's lawyer stood. "Objection! Hearsay!" "They're both willing to testify, Your Honor," Jessica said. "I'll allow it. Continue." Mrs. Peterson took the stand next. "Ma'am, what did you observe?" Jessica asked. "Last July, I saw Mr. Morrison grab Sophie's arm roughly when she dropped her ice cream. He called her a stupid, clumsy brat, while Mrs. Taylor watched and did nothing." "What was Mrs. Taylor's response?" "She told Sophie to apologize to her grandfather." Rachel's face reddened from her seat. Dr. Anderson testified next about Sophie's injuries. "Doctor, in your professional opinion, were these injuries consistent with an accidental fall?" "No. The finger-shaped bruising indicates someone grabbed her forcefully before she fell. The location and severity of the wrist fracture suggests she was pushed or thrown." "Thank you, Doctor." Then Dr. Bennett,
Sophie's therapist took the stand. How has this incident affected Sophie? She's showing signs of post-traumatic stress, nightmares, anxiety around her grandfather, fear of making mistakes. She told me she thought her mother didn't love her because she didn't protect her. I saw Rachel wipe her eyes, but I felt nothing. Connor Reed cross-examined. Isn't it possible Sophie misunderstood what happened? Children often exaggerate. Sophie's account has been consistent across multiple sessions. She's not exaggerating. Finally, Rachel took the stand. Mrs. Taylor, why did you defend your father? Connor asked. Because I know my dad. He would never intentionally hurt Sophie. It was an accident. Even after multiple witnesses confirmed aggressive behavior? They don't know him like I do. Jessica stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Taylor, when your daughter told you her grandfather pushed her, why didn't you believe her? I did believe something happened, but did you believe your father's version or your daughter's version? Rachel hesitated. My father explained what happened. Your 7-year-old daughter, with a broken wrist, told you her grandfather hurt her, and you chose to believe the adult man instead? Is that correct? It's not that simple. It is that simple, Mrs. Taylor. Did you or did you not tell Sophie to stop lying? I told her to stop exaggerating. To a 7-year-old, that's the same as calling her a liar. No further questions. Judge Morrison called Sophie into her chambers privately. When they returned 20 minutes later, the judge looked grim. I've heard enough. Mrs. Taylor, your failure to protect your daughter from a known aggressor is deeply concerning. Mr. Frank Morrison poses a clear danger to the child. Rachel stood. Your Honor, please. Sit down, Mrs. Taylor. Mr. Taylor is awarded full physical and legal custody. Mrs. Taylor, you will have supervised visitation only, 2 hours per week, supervised by a court-appointed monitor. Mr. Frank Morrison is hereby ordered to have 0 contact with the minor child. A permanent restraining order is granted. Your Honor, that's not fair, Rachel cried. What's not fair is a child telling her mother she was hurt and being called a liar. Until you can prioritize your daughter's safety over your father's feelings, supervised visits are all you get. This hearing is adjourned. Connor put his hand on Rachel's shoulder. We can appeal. On what grounds? Jessica said firmly. Your client chose an abuser over her child. No appeals court will overturn this. Rachel looked at me, tears streaming. Kian, please, let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. The judge made her decision. I'm her mother! Then you should have acted like it when she needed you. Frank burst through the courtroom doors. This is garbage! That judge is biased! A bailiff intercepted him. Sir, you need to leave. I have rights! She's my granddaughter! You have 0 rights, I said coldly. And if you come near Sophie again, you'll be arrested. Jessica gathered her files. Kian, congratulations. Sophie is safe now. Outside the courthouse, Lauren hugged me. You did it, brother. You protected her. I just wish Rachel had. Some people are too broken to fix. At least Sophie has you. That night, I made Sophie her favorite dinner. Daddy, did the judge decide? Yes, baby. You're staying with me. Grandpa Frank can't come around anymore. What about Mommy? You can see Mommy sometimes, but only when another adult is there to make sure you're safe. Is Mommy mad at me? No, sweetie. Mommy made bad choices, and she has to fix them before things can change. Sophie hugged me. Thank you for believing me. Always, Sophie. Always. I got my daughter back, and she got her safety. That's a victory worth fighting for. Have you ever had to choose between protecting your child and keeping family peace? Sometimes being a parent means making the hardest choice. Like and subscribe for more stories about people who refused to be victims and fought back the right way.